Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Healthy, Happy, Wise, Wealthy. I have with us today Randall Avery with Diesel Wealth Management, and he is out of Atlanta, which is, of course, I miss Atlanta so much. But Randall, before we start, we have a podcast sponsor. It's actually turning into a partnership with an IT company I used with a former business I had when I was in Atlanta. And they're great in Mindy, Mindii. And one of the things they do is help entrepreneurs, businesses with AI integrations to make their whole website and everything work better, including maybe building an app or something like that. So excited to have them on board. And thank you for coming on. I'm so excited to interview someone from Atlanta. I've asked a few people before this, and but here you are.
Yes.
Yeah. So what part of Atlanta are you in?
Yeah, so I'm coming from the East Atlanta metro area, so kind of the North Decatur area. And just let me know next time you come in town. We'll keep the shrimp and grits ready for you.
Okay, that sounds good. I miss it. So Randall is Diesel Wealth Management. A lot of what you do is helping business owners, 1099, all that kind of thing, manage this income that's coming in that's not a regular income. Yeah. So tell us, like, if you have someone come to you and they're just starting out 1090, or they haven't done any kind of financial planning, and they're coming to you, what is the first thing you do with someone who has that kind of irregular income?
Yeah. I think the first thing I tell them is that they have to become at peace with, hey, I have two sets of books. I have a business set of books, and then I have a personal set of books, and that I have to manage both. And a lot of times people come to me, they haven't managed one of those books. So coming to the realization that I have two separate books, my business has income and expense needs, my personal lifestyle has income and expense needs, and how do I play those two off of each other?
That seems very complicated. Yeah. And do you find like people who want to, be, their own boss don't want to do books?
Yeah, a lot of people, they say, hey, I just want to do my thing, make my widget, provide my service, do whatever that I do because I'm great at it. And I think that's a beautiful thing, but you really have to understand you either have to outsource those things, but even when you outsource, there's some level of measuring your success in business that you have to do. And part of measuring your success is the financial aspect, making sure that you're profitable, making sure that you're having enough to reinvest in the business and reinvest in yourself. As a business owner, we take on a lot. It's stressful. It wears us down. You do have to have some resources to, come back and be at peace and really recover from what we as business owners have to go through.
Yeah, and you're one of them. So
Yes.
what I should ask you, what got you into this?
Yeah. So my background bounced around a little bit. I started my career actually in internal audit. So folks who don't know about internal audit, that's really about checks and balances, documenting processes and procedures. And I think it was a great experience becoming a business owner, knowing that I have to document things. What is the check to make sure that task was done? All those elements. After 3 years of internal audit, I did something called Corporate Financial Planning and Analysis, which is short for FP&A. And that's where we analyzed companies' books, did projections. And I enjoyed that work and I enjoyed business, but some of the work that I did, I felt like didn't really have a soul. So I really wanted to help individuals instead of companies. But since I work with business owners, I kind of get the best of both worlds.
Yeah. Well, and it does seem like, and I've had the last couple of guests I've had on, their podcasts aren't even out yet, and talking to you, but it is about, how do we maybe as a country or, even as humanity, because there's an AI shift, coming. So it might be that we start our own businesses, and that could be the reality for a lot of people, but we need some education on that. And there's so many aspects to running a business. You not only have to know like the thing you're super good at that, people want your services for, but you have to know processes and procedures, which feels like a swear word. Honestly, it does for a lot of people. I think it does for me, and I've gotten kind of used to it over the years because I've run some businesses, but or try as best as I can on your own. But even like I did real estate for a little bit in Atlanta, so that's running your own business. So I think there's so many things that that people are doing that are sales, anything that's that inconsistent 1099 income where you got to go out hunting your food
It's
and
really
not getting the
interesting.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting that, I was a business major and they really don't teach you sales. And sales is a key element of every single business. But they really don't teach you the elements of sales, what it takes to get somebody to know, like, and trust you, feel comfortable to do a transaction with you. I think for a
Hmm.
lot of business owners, especially if you're transitioning from corporate America, that is a sticking point, is how do I get somebody to part with their monies to provide the value that I want to provide them?
Yeah, it is something. And that's a whole, that whole other thing of, getting people to trust you, right? And you have to be trustworthy. But they also have to know what the need is. So sales is basically, what is the need? Why would you need this? So yeah, for sure. So when people come to you, do you usually just start with people who are like brand new, like real estate agents or salespeople, or do you work with businesses at all the levels of managing it? What do you do?
Yeah, it's usually all the levels. So for my stake, because I work with practice owners, when you think about practice owners, you think about anything that has high labor costs, a dental office, a law practice, a mental health profession, consulting, those
Mm,
fall under the umbrella. So usually if they're new, they're transitioning from a 9 to 5 into a business owners, and they usually do the same thing parallel at the same time. I also work with those who have employees and really having a growing, thriving business. So I go across the spectrum, but for me, it's entertaining because I can see what the young startup is doing, what the large established is doing. And there is some cross knowledge that I provide my clients saying, hey, this is what I hear so-and-so is doing, or here, hey, this is a process that has helped this person make that leap. And I think that
mhm.
has been value add for a lot of people I work with.
Yeah. So you don't really necessarily help them put in processes. It's just an extra thing you do.
That's
Yeah.
correct. Correct. So if
That's
I hear an
that's very
issue when it
helpful.
comes to their finances, I say, oh, that's a process issue. Let's take a step back and say, do you have a check and balance there? Even something as simple as pricing. Pricing is probably the biggest thing when you talk about somebody starting out, getting that number tuned in correctly.
Yeah, tell me about that. What do you find with that?
Yeah, so a lot of times because a person loves what they do, they tend to undercharge themselves. And they really can't see the full scope as far as what does it take to economically make this business viable. They first start off with what economically I can do to be profitable. Then what's economically viable for me to live my lifestyle. But then the extra step, and I think the most important step, what is economically viable for me to reinvest in this business to make it grow and provide true value for my clients. The first thing I advise anybody is, and this is taking a step back, is do something called have 100 cups of coffee. And that's really means to have conversations with people in your industry about what they're doing and how they're doing it. And you'll be surprised, just like us as business owners, we share anything because we know very few people are actually going to execute on that. But once you in those conversations, talk about what should I charge? What should I charge for this services? What do you think the market is for that services? And I think that will help you with pricing in this world.
That's great advice. Yeah. To just I've had other people recently say the same thing. Is like go find someone who's in your industry who and ask them a bunch of questions and they'll probably, just tell you everything.
Everything.
Yeah. I think when you're solopreneur to business owner, and I've had a lot of clients who are same thing, like the different medical, legal, and it is I think it's lonely in a way too, and also like these are smart people, so smart, intelligent, hardworking people are the ones who go do this, and our education system hasn't set us up to learn to know everything we're supposed to do, and it feels like it just feels so muddy, like you don't really know what you don't know, and you're supposed to know it, and other people must know it because they're running businesses. Um, Maybe not as effectively as they should, but so that one of the first things you do is just kind of help people put in processes and procedures. Yeah. So like, what else do you notice? So they need like 2 set of books. Do most people not have 2 set of books?
No, a lot of people combine their finances because, you know, they're trying to make ends meet. So if I have an expenditure come up, my child needs XYZ, I need this repair in my house, it's automatic that I go ahead and dip into that. And it takes time to go to the bank to set up separate sets of accounts, right? And you don't want to put yourself in a situation where you're over withdrawing your accounts. So being intentional about that step early on, I think will benefit a lot of business owners.
So how do they, like, what different bank accounts would they need besides just a bank and a personal? Is there more to that?
So from my experience, and I see what works with folks, this is the minimum, like the baseline. What they need is one account just for general transactions for their business, paying bills, paying yourself, all those different things. Then they need a second account for taxes. People forget about, I need to allocate some funds to pay the IRS and tax bill. And it takes a level of emotional maturity to say, that's not my money. I can't dip in that if something happens in my business. That is completely separate. So I really recommend those 2 different set of bank accounts. And then you handle your personal as you do your personal. And of course, I'm a personal finance guy, so I have some opinions on that. But do that as you may, but make sure you keep these 2 accounts in check and fully funded at all times.
Okay, so for business, 2 accounts, one for regular operations and one for taxes. So I'm curious, since this is your business, what your opinion is on personal.
Yeah. So on your personal, I believe there should be, I think it's about a 4 account system. So first one is going to be an income account. And this is also good for couples too, because things can get complicated. So if a couple decides to combine all their finances, there should be an income account where all income comes into this account. The next account should be what I like to call a bill payment account. This is where your utility bills are linked. This is where all your credit cards are linked, and you keep those 2 separate. Why do you keep those separate? Well, it's not hard for somebody to fat finger a number and drain all your account, but at least you have this income account with money there set aside. And then you have a long-term savings account. So in your bill payment account, I like to keep 2.5 months worth of living expenses. 2.5 months of living expenses. Why? Because usually that covers most of what happens in your life. If I need a major repair, if I need a car repair, I don't have to dip back into my savings because I have those reserves ready to go. So that's really the system there. And for the couples, I do recommend each couple have their own individual account. So out of that income account, they get an allocation in which they can really be who they really are, express themselves, because you need some level of autonomy, especially when both parties are working and earning an income.
That's great advice. Sounds like some marriage counseling right there too.
You'll be surprised the conversations I have to sit in on, because people are different and they're going to go through their stuff right in front of you in the moment.
Yeah. Well, most of relationship, it just seems like it does a lot come down to money, right? Everything in life comes down to money. Is there enough money? Is there enough income? And that can get really scary when the answer is no. So so managing all that. So once they have that, so they have their 2 buckets for business, they have their 2 set of books. Do most people, ask me about books again, do they manage their own books, or do they go ahead and find an accountant to do that, or a bookkeeper to do that?
Yeah, practically, and this is what happens in the real world, not what should happen. So what happens in the real world, they wait till the end of the year and they scrub their bank statements and they submit that to their tax preparer. The next step is usually they operate in some type of spreadsheet. Okay. And then once they become profitable enough, they do bring on an accountant or enable the services of like QuickBooks and functionally practically put that in there. And then they move over to just having a full-time bookkeeper who manages that money. So that's really the lifestyle. It starts off with, hey, let me just run through my bank statements and look at where my expenses are. Then we move to some type of spreadsheet or QuickBooks function. And then you usually move into having a bookkeeper actually managing your money.
Yeah. Well, and bookkeepers, lots of times too, you don't have to pay a full salary. That's usually something you you can have all these people on your team that you're not paying a full-time salary. You're just paying for their services, fractional or, whatever you might call it. Yeah. In Reno, where I'm at now, there's a lot of fractional. So in the business world, I mean, the fractional bookkeeper, fractional CFO, fractional CEO, fractional COO, all these different services. So you can just pay for the service. And that's, I know, very handy as you're just starting, of course, finding the team of people that you trust around you. So for sure. Okay. So they start out with that. They got their accounting down, hypothetically.
Yes.
With their two things. And then they have their different buckets for their home finances. So let's say they're rolling. They get, they have those things done, and now they have some money coming in. So what's the next thing? Because I know you help them build the whole building wealth. So what's next after that?
So I like to think of it this way. Let's pretend like the government works for the people. Okay, let's use our imagination.
Let's use our imagination. Yeah.
They work for the people. and actually, in this case, they did work for the people. They actually created business accounts specifically for business owners that they can use to save. They came to the realization that as business owners, it usually takes us 5 to 10 years to get that thing rolling to where you can save significantly for your retirement. So they created types of accounts. A couple of them, they're called a SEP IRA, SEP IRA, Solo 401k, and there's a couple other ones, but those are the two main ones. In those accounts, you can actually allocate up to $70,000 into that account to reduce your taxes. So the government has created a scheme in which you can actually funnel money into these accounts, a large amount of money, so that you can prepare for your retirement. So what is that comparable to? So with a 401k, you can usually only put around $20,000 to $25,000 as an individual. But since you're self-employed, you can allocate $70,000 into these accounts. So I have clients come to me, they're 50 years old, maybe only have like $50,000 saved up. And we've been able to easily retire them with around $1 million just because they're able to funnel money over the next 10 years into these large accounts. So these are beautiful powerhouse accounts that they can use to build wealth.
Wow. I've never heard of that before. So that's what is it called again? The Solo 401k?
Yeah. So it's the SEP IRA. And let me explain why a little bit. I think context is good for the audience.
I've heard of that one. I guess I didn't know what it means. What does SEP mean? What does that
stands for Simplified Employee Pension Plan. And it doesn't even, what it spells out doesn't really define it well. So a SEP IRA, and it's simple for a reason, because there's less, I guess, reporting requirements, even though the other ones don't have a heavy reporting requirement, but it's like something you can easily put into place. And this is what I recommend usually if you have an LLC. Okay. If you have an LLC, SEP IRA, and you don't have a bookkeeping kind of running payroll for you, I recommend the SEP IRA because it's easy and you can funnel money into that. The next type of account, as I mentioned, was the Solo 401k. Solo 401k. This is where if you have a bookkeeper, somebody who's going to run payroll for you, this is this account. And you may ask yourself, why would somebody use the SEP over the Solo 401k? It's because you can make employee deductions, meaning that you can not only contribute as an employer, which you are because you're a business owner, but also as an employee, and that lowers your tax bill. And what is the tax all business owner hate? Self-employment tax. And for those who don't know what's the difference, when you work for an employer, your employer pays a portion of those taxes. But when you're self-employed, you have to pay the full gambit of those taxes. So having that Solo 401k is an excellent idea to have. And like I said, you can put over $70,000 into the sucker if you meet the income requirements. And that's really how people prepare for retirement.
Okay. So you can put 70,000 into the Solo 401k.
In both. So, and it's based off of 25% of your income. So you do have to earn a certain amount of income to reach the maximum amount, but still it's a significant amount that people should really take advantage of. If you are self-employed, 1099 contractor, making money outside of a W-2, you have the option to open up one of those two plans.
Do people do both?
Some people do both. I have both.
Okay.
I have both.
All right.
Depending on, how the taxes flow in the year, you can do both. You can't contribute to both within the same year. So you have to be careful.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So you have to pick one or the other.
That's correct.
Basically. Okay. So 70,000 total, not 70,000 each, that you can contribute per year. What would that be? If your income is 280,000, the money you bring in,
that's close, right? It's definitely around the 300,000 mark is where I see people being able to really dump the whole gambit in.
I did really good mental math there, didn't I? I'm
It was
pretty
good.
proud of myself. Yeah, my dad was a math teacher, so I learned mental math from that, and that's about it. I didn't know any of this other stuff. So, do you have a preference for how you guide people with those two buckets? Like, what is the preference? So how do you help people choose which one to use?
Yeah, it's usually where you are in your business, and if you have an accountant or a fractional bookkeeper helping you out.
Mhm.
So if you are starting out, and I think one of the benefits also, and I think you can actually contribute beyond the tax year. So with the SEP IRA, and I've done this a lot of times, I have my accountant file my taxes, and I say, hey, what is the maximum amount I can put in? And they give me a number and I put that amount in, and that reduces my tax bill. So you can wait till after the year closes. So it's a little bit extra planning time because a lot of deductions you have with your taxes you can't do. So starting out, most people are going to go with the SEP. Once
Okay.
they get more advanced and have that accountant, that's when the solo 401k comes into account. So those are usually the progression. And the practical matter is, have you ever heard of something called an S corp?
I have, yes.
Usually when they go to the S corp is when the solo 401k kicks in. So
Okay.
if you want like a marker, have an accountant and have an S corp. Those are when people transition into a solo 401k.
Nice. So, do you help people also like with employee plans and that kind of thing as they're growing? Is that part of what you do?
That's
Or
currently
do you-
not what I do because
Okay.
there's a lot of providers that can do it at a low cost, and it's a pretty commoditized area. I'll help
Okay.
them kind of vet which employer plan works best for them, though.
Yeah. It's just nice to have because I'm sure you give advice on all kinds of stuff that's a little bit outside of the scope of what you exactly do. So, okay, so after that, so they have those retirement things, and there's just a bunch more income now that they have. They're in year whatever,
Hmm, hmm.
10.
Yes.
Now what should they
Yeah.
do?
Yeah. So let's pretend like they're fully funding those retirement accounts.
Okay.
And the next thing is to reinvest back into the business to lower their workload.
Okay.
As business owners, we can get caught in a hamster wheel. You know, we're running, we're spending. But now, because you have the income and the flexibility, you should be reinvesting back into your business, either to hire staff or to increase your technology stack so that you can kind of relax a little bit, get off the hamster wheel and enjoy your life, right? It's hard for a lot of business owners to do that. But once you have the funds to do that, why not execute that?
Yeah. So now you're reinvesting in your business. So is there like do people usually have a goal of
Mhm.
stepping back from the business and like how do people how have you found people operate in their business? Do some of them want to step back and have someone else kind of be running it, or is that some professions that's probably not even possible, I imagine, to some degree. But
I think it's what determines how much somebody, a business owner, with work is what's going on in their life. So if I have young kids at home, I may want to dial back. If my kids are leaving off to college, I may want to turn the dial back up. If I have an illness with a family member or an illness with myself, then I want to dial back. So it's really depending on the lifestyle desires. And I guess sometimes the individual person, some people love travel. And I just talked with
mm,
another financial planner who owns their own firm. They literally only work 20 hours a week. And when they're thinking about delegating, there's like the cost of managing as far as time is not worth delegating. So why not just hold on to that 20 hours a week? So it really depends on how you structure your business and what you desire as far as how you want your business to grow.
yeah, for sure. Are there differences that you have found in helping someone manage like a clinic versus a law office versus a real estate business, let's say?
Yeah. So law is when we think about practices is more the established kind. So they have like policies and procedures, they have templated stuff, and so they kind of have a well-oiled machine.
Right.
And they, you know, it's a lawyer would charge as much as they can naturally. Other professions like a therapy practice, well, they're not wired as way to charge as much, so they actually have to kind of mature into kind of charging their pure role and also delegating certain tasks. So there is a slight difference in, I think it's driven by the personality that goes within each field. So an attorney is used to, for lack of a better word, being combative, having analytical thinking and rebuttaling. So they're good at negotiating, while a therapist may be wired to kind of save the world, help the people. Capitalism may be a negative thing. So you really have, you see how different professions mature. While I have some engineering clients, well, that number has to be the number. And if it's not the number, there's a big problem. We're going to work all night long until that number's reconciled. So I think it really depends on usually the personality that goes into each profession, which I enjoy because I get to hear that, see that, and it actually makes me a better advisor.
I love that. I love that so much. So do you also work with people who are, employees, right? Like, or who have kind of, more of a just regular salary.
Mhm.
So what are some of the things you just advise in general for people for retirement?
Yeah. So the biggest thing I feel like the value added I have has little to do with money and more about planning for what does retirement look like for them.
Okay.
So I had a client, just a quick example, that was thinking about buying a home. And I brought up that she had a daughter, and I was like, and the daughter lived in another state. And I was like, do you think you'll be moving in with your daughter or moving close to your daughter if she so decides to have a child? So really
Great
taking
question.
that next step to say, well, if I'm thinking about purchasing a home and with these interest rates, I have to be in that house for 10 years for me to reap the value. Does it make economic sense for me to purchase now? Or should I hold off knowing that I'll hopefully move to another state? It also gets you to mind as, well, maybe I need to massage that relationship to make sure if that's my goal, end goal that I want, what do I need to do? What do I need to say, proposition, and get through? So the biggest value I feel like I add is planning, especially for those W-2 employees, planning for what retirement looks like. So do I want to stay in this house? Do I want to downsize? Do I need to purchase a car? Do I need to make these certain home repairs? Who are the connections and associations I need to sign up with today so when it makes happen? The scariest thing for my clients, and this is a personal preference and bias, and every advisor and consultant has these, I don't want my client to retire and just be stuck in front of a TV watching CNN, Fox News all day. I feel like they're a bigger asset to society if I can have them engaged and energized about life. So that I feel like when we talk about prioritization of what I do with clients, that's usually number one for them. And it's one that I don't advertise, they don't expect. But when, as you can imagine, when they're in retirement, they're smiling, they're socializing with people their own age, they really do say, wow, I'm glad that I had those conversations with Randall.
I love that so much. And so many conversations that I've had on the podcast are really about thinking through things that we don't want to think through necessarily, or we're kind of scared of the future. We're scared of end of life planning. I've talked about that with stuff, retirement planning. We're like, what is it? We just got to pay off our house is usually kind of maybe the thing we think about, and have some money in the bank, a little bit to make sure we're okay.
Mhm.
But we don't really think about, what do we want it to look like? What's going to be involved in it? Who's going to be, there and that kind of thing. So that's really awesome that you have those conversations with people.
Yeah. And I think, so people don't realize, like, if you retire at 60 and you're in good health, there's a chance you can make it to age 90. That's 30 years of your life. That's a third of your life you're going to spend not working that 9-to-5 job. So planning for that, I think is equally important, and making sure that is just as fulfilling as those other 60 years you've lived.
Yeah. Well, that makes so much sense to me.
Mhm.
And you do a lot of, you have kind of a give back. You have a YouTube channel,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So tell us about your YouTube channel.
Yeah. So I understand that the way financial planners charge, that everybody can't be a client. But I feel, driven to get knowledge out there free of charge, easily accessible. So that's why I created a YouTube channel where I actually provide financial advice. I specifically do something called Practice Prosperity, where I interview practice owners. So there's a lot of information online about how to get rich quick, what you need to be doing to your business. But I've decided I want to interview actual business owners doing this day in and day out. And how are they making ends meet? Just regular folks. How are you paying your taxes? How are you distributing these conversations that we have today? How are you preparing for retirement? What are you thinking about? What are your fears? And once we go into that knowledge, I'm hoping to create something that say, hey, I have a resource that even though I may not have the means to pay for a financial planner, I can set myself up to win. And that's what makes me smile and I enjoy.
Yeah, thank you for doing that's that's really kind of was my impetus in doing this too. It's like, well, influencers, I say in quotes, you just know what's in your brain to know. So, but why not interview people that know all kinds of stuff and have great information and great wisdom? And that's just seems like a better option to me. But when you do interviewing with these different people who are practice owners, let's say, like what comes out? Like some general wisdom you hear from them?
I think the biggest thing that moves the needle, is good for this audience, is we hear about social media, we hear about posting, we hear about emailing, but in business, specifically with service-based businesses, hand-to-hand combat still wins out. What I mean by that, actually walking up to somebody, shaking their hand, smiling at them, having a coffee with them, taking them out, taking interest in what they take interest in. Those are what makes sales. It's still the case. And that's what I mean. A lot of the successful business owners I interview is they walked into a doctor's office. They did a seminar. They have conversations with people. They regularly check in on folks and follow up. That is not, even with AI, that is not going away. Once you have to make a purchase of a certain amount, knowing that person, having some type of intimate relationship with that person matters. And I feel like, as far as I know, it will still matter for a long time. Because even with AI, there's people actually going to the other end of the pendulum as far as, I want human connections now. I want something genuine. Yeah. I don't want something overly, painted. I want something real.
Yeah. I think that's huge. And it's been really interesting to me to have different conversations with people on the topic of AI, because this is something that's affecting us. And when I was in Atlanta, I, was an actor and, then did the other businesses to support that habit. How else are you going to say it? And then in Reno, it's very tech forward in the business community. And so they're super excited about AI. It seems like in general, not everyone, a lot of business owners. It's also Reno is it's also an older demographic. Atlanta's very young, actually, but then, like average age in Atlanta is 30. I think average age in Northern Nevada, I don't even know. It's probably closer to 60. That's probably not true, but it seems like it skews older. So there's also the, people who want to do 50 and older, which I'm in that category, but like, I think we're just used to the ways that it's been done for years. Younger people are used to, let's try all the new things that are out there that makes life simpler, that can be systems driven or AI driven. But in general, overall, I'm like, people need people.
Yes.
People need human interaction. Not through a screen is okay when, like we're doing right now, but like we need our people. We need to know that we're doing business with people that we can have a conversation with. I think everyone wants that for a lot of, maybe not every transaction, but that isn't going away. In fact, I think like what you're saying, it's going to multiply.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And every time I hear this, I just think, I think life is going to get smaller. Like, I think we're going to go, let's grow our own food.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Let's get in the communities where we know the people, So I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that's kind of how it's going to go too? I mean, it does affect us.
Yeah, I think what you were alluding to earlier in this episode, you mentioned that everybody's kind of have to be self-employed on some level. And that's because these larger corporations, as you've been seeing, they're downsizing because they need less people to execute the job. They're more profitable, but they're slowly downsizing the headcount. So what we would default into working for a larger corporation or a thing, well, there'll be robots. So we actually have to be our own self-value added entity. And to your point, we'll have probably robots growing our vegetables in our backyard and all those other things. So what's left that we're going to desire? We're going to desire wanting to see people, because we're going to get tired talking to that robot after a while. I promise you.
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah. Well, and I don't know about all that. I don't know if I mean, maybe, who knows, but, yeah, humanity supporting humanity. That's, I'm all for that. One way for sure.
Yes.
Randall, what have I missed? What else do you have that we want to talk about?
I'm trying to think what's an important thing that I really want people to think about, especially let's say when it comes to kind of planning for retirement. And this is a controversial thought, so I think this would be interesting and fun. There's a book, I didn't come up with the idea. It's called, and it's a harsh title, but it has a lot of meaning. It's called Die with Zero. The concept that we have this thing backwards. We all want to build up this massive wealth. And when somebody passes, they pass down $1 million to their heirs. And why do we do that? When you pass, do you really know where the money's going? Well, I can set up a trust. I can put it on my business. But do you really know what's going to happen with your money? Why not enjoy your money today? Meaning not spend it all yourself. Why not give to what you care for, the people you care for, so you can see how that money can manifest, versus them waiting, saying, I wonder what I'm going to get. Think about really, how can I use my money today? And the goal should not be able to pass with a couple multi-million dollars in an investment account. That's one of the areas, not only having a fulfilling life, but also with my clients. Let's put your money to work today, because when you pass, I have no idea who's going to receive the money or how they're going to spend it.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. So what would that mean? Like, what would be some changes you do in planning when, or in what you do? Like, what would you suggest people do?
Yeah, so the theory is that it should work as a bell curve, in the sense of, think of how you spend your money. You should be spending your money, a lot more of it, around 45 to around 65. That should be your peak spending years of your life, because that's where you have the means to do things. That's also when you have the energy to go out and about, because let's be honest, when we're 78, we're probably not going to take an international flight. We may think we will, and some people will. There's always exceptions to the rule, but they're the ones in the wheelchairs rolling to the plane. So really focus on those 45 to 55 years or 65 years, really doing the most with your money. Have a bucket list, spend, and have those experiences that you want. But also be aggressive with your giving. I recommend, say, man, I love my grandkids. Well, why don't you pay for that expensive what is called summer program? If they need to go to a better school system, maybe I move money to help them go to a better school system. If there's a certification or something that is just slightly out of reach, or would cause a strain in their household, why not invest that $10,000? And these aren't large, well, they're relatively large amounts, but these are manageable amounts for those who have means. So, but think about the impact that can make in their 20s versus you giving their money in their 60s.
Yeah.
The amount of growth, the amount of control, and I don't like to say that, but impact you can have is significantly greater if you focus on giving now versus deciding who inherits what and why.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. That's great. So that's a book that you read that's kind of...
It's on Amazon. It's called Die with Zero. I have no affiliation. Great book. It challenges the way you think. And I think that's a good thing. You don't have to agree with 100% of that logic, but I think there's some elements a lot of people can say, I can see where that can enhance my life and enhance the people I love to life.
Yeah, for sure. Just like, give where you can now, Yeah. I love that.
Yes.
So, Randall, are you a Braves fan? Let's go back to Atlanta.
Let's go back to Atlanta. By default, I am a Braves. I have to be. I'm all Atlanta, all Georgia teams. So Braves, Falcons, UGA, and it's been a painful journey. The Braves have been doing pretty good though.
I followed the Braves when I was in Atlanta, but I don't tend to watch sports on television.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But I was getting ready for this, and I looked at my Braves, shirt that I have. I probably have more than one. I'm like, oh, I miss the Braves.
Have you been
A lot
to
of
the new
things.
park in Truist?
Yes.
It's nice.
In fact, before I moved to Reno, I lived there. How
Oh,
about
no.
that?
Okay.
For a little, just over a year. Yeah. I'm like, let's have an adventure.
You left the Battery? That's big.
I left the Battery. Yeah. If you guys are going to Atlanta and you're not from Atlanta and you don't know what the Battery is, now you have a goal of what you're going to do when you go to Atlanta next
Yes.
time.
Yeah.
Or if it's your first time, that's what you do. Go to the Battery. Just by the Braves Stadium. It's one of the best things. And then what else? Like there's wineries in North Georgia. I like the wineries. Have you ever been to those?
I have not been to the winery in North Georgia. Are they pretty good?
Randall, come on. Yeah.
I know.
Come on. Like live. No. You're not a wine drinker, won't matter. No, they're fabulous. They're fabulous. It's not necessarily the wine is the most fabulous that you'll ever drink, but the views
Yeah.
can be really amazing and fun. So
I am
I
a
like
big
that.
fan of the North Georgia mountains area, so I do enjoy those areas. So it's peaceful. You get away. You have to turn off things, and I enjoy that.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, I actually bought some land up there and then moved to Reno. So talk about life transitions. It's very weird. Life can be very weird. That's when like you make your plan, you know what I mean? You make your plan as best as you can, and then there's pivots for sure.
Yes.
What else is great about Atlanta? What else do you like to do?
What would I recommend in Atlanta? I think because we've had kind of like a lot of walkways, the Beltline is something that folks should
Yeah, the
explore.
Beltline. I was telling someone about the Beltline the other day.
Park and Pont City
Mhm.
Market, that
Yeah.
within itself is nice. And then you could just walk, dine on the Beltline. I think it shows the full essence of Atlanta, in my opinion, because everybody goes to the Beltline.
Yeah. I highly agree with that also. So Pont City Market and the Beltline right there, that's some pretty classic Atlanta.
Yeah.
And you might be going for an event. So yeah, I miss it so much. I really do miss it. But thank you for coming on. And any parting words of wisdom for us?
Any parting words of wisdom? This is tough. If you don't enjoy what you do, change. Life is too short, as I mentioned. It can't be all about money, but really enjoy what you do. And I believe the money will come. A little ingenuity, a little talking to the right people, as we discussed. And I think that's really a big thing. And if you're in the Atlanta metro area or even across the United States and you're looking for a financial planner who understands business owners, please check out my website, www.deasilwm.com, www.deasilwm.com.
Yes. So you do work with people around the country, not just in Georgia.
That's correct. I'm registered in the
Yeah.
state of Georgia, but most states have something called a de minimis rule. So you can have 5 clients in each individual state.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right. So you guys better call him quick before he gets to the 5 in your state.
Yes. Yes.
I didn't know that was a thing. So five per state.
Yes.
That's cool. All right. That's awesome. Well, Randall, have a great rest of your day. Appreciate you coming on. And you guys go check out so Diesel DEASILWM for wealthmanagement.com. And also tell us what diesel means, because I think that's pretty cool. I saw that on your website.
So diesel is the technical term is a Scottish word, the way the sun moves.
Okay.
And it's supposed to move clockwise, and it's supposed to be prosperous, beneficial, prosperity. So that's kind of how I want my clients to move. I really want them to act in a way that brings a prosperous life. Doesn't necessarily mean it represents the highest bank account, but as I said, and I hope you listen to this episode, it makes them enjoy life, smile, love on people more, really be prosperous and about what they do.
Yeah, well, that's a great name. And then Practice Prosperity on YouTube. You guys check that out too for just more great wisdom on that. So thank you, Randall. Yeah, appreciate you.
Take care.
Did you like that? You can watch more episodes here. Subscribe over here. We actually have new episodes with awesome guests every Thursday. So check back in.
that all?